You know what is genuinely liberating about off-grid living in Australia in 2026? Complete independence from electricity bills of $2,000 to $3,000 annually, water bills of $1,000 a year, sewerage charges of $800, and council control over every aspect of how you live your life. But here is the critical reality most people researching off-grid living do not understand until too late. Off-grid living is not automatically legal everywhere in Australia. Most metropolitan councils and many regional councils require mandatory connection to the electricity grid, town water, and sewerage, even when you explicitly do not want these services and can provide your own alternatives. Building codes and regulations prohibit alternative housing types, including sheds, containers, tiny houses, and unconventional dwellings. Zoning regulations can ban the entire lifestyle before you even purchase land or begin building. The key to successful, sustainable off-grid living is not just having solar panels and water tanks installed on your property. It is finding specific locations where councils either formally support alternative living through explicit policies, or where councils informally do not enforce rules and allow practical tolerance. These are not necessarily the most remote locations in Australia where nobody would find you. These are the sweet spots where land is cheap and accessible. Councils are permissive or tolerant. Water is accessible through rainfall or bores. Climate is manageable with proper design, and minimal services exist nearby for when you genuinely need medical care or supplies. For context, establishing an off-grid property typically costs $60,000 to $100,000 in total, including land, dwelling, solar system, water infrastructure, and septic. That is less than 1 year's Sydney rent. You are buying permanent independence for what most people pay annually to landlords. I researched council policies extensively. I contacted shire planners about alternative housing. I verified actual enforcement practices versus written regulations. I talked to people living off-grid in these locations about real experiences. These 12 towns and shires represent the best locations in Australia for off-grid living in 2026. Some have formal policies supporting alternative housing. Some have informal tolerance through not enforcing rules. All offer realistic pathways to legal or quasi-legal off-grid independence. Let's break down where Australians can actually live off-grid successfully. At number 12, the Shire of Menzies in Western Australia. This remote goldfield shire has explicit, documented support for alternative housing in official shire policies. The population is approximately 150 permanent residents scattered across a massive shire area. It sits about 700 kilometres east of Perth in the historic Goldfields region. The Shire has published policies permitting alternative housing types, including insulated shed conversions, tiny houses on trailers, and shipping container conversions on standard residential blocks. Building permits are still formally required, so there is some oversight, but standards and requirements are substantially relaxed and simplified compared to metropolitan areas. Enforcement of minor code violations is minimal to non-existent because the council desperately wants residents to maintain population numbers. Land costs $10,000 to $20,000 for standard residential blocks within town boundaries or for rural blocks in surrounding areas. Rainfall is extremely low at 200 to 300 millimeters annually, which requires substantial water storage capacity, a minimum of 50,000 litres. Bores are technically possible, but water quality varies significantly, so testing is essential. Solar conditions are excellent, with minimal cloud cover year-round, providing optimal generation. Total realistic setup costs are as follows. Land purchase, $15,000. A quality insulated shed conversion, including materials and basic labour, $40,000. A complete solar system with battery bank for household needs, $12,000. Water tanks and rainwater collection infrastructure, $8,000. A septic or composting toilet system, $4,000. The complete total is approximately $79,000 for a fully functional OFF grid setup. Extreme remoteness and isolation means 700 kilometers to Perth for major supplies or services. Medical care is minimal, with visiting practitioners only. Summer temperatures routinely exceed 45 degrees Celsius, requiring excellent insulation and adequate power for some cooling. Remoteness and brutal heat are real factors to plan for, but you have genuine, formal council support and approval for alternative living, which reduces legal stress completely. $15,000 for land plus $64,000 in infrastructure equals genuine off-grid living with formal council approval and legal clarity. Expect extreme remoteness and brutal heat. Minimal services, but minimal enforcement creates maximum freedom. Number 11, the Shire of Kew in Western Australia. A goldfield shire with a documented alternative housing policy. Population approximately 200 people. It is about 650 kilometres northeast of Perth. Kew Shire has published policies supporting shed dwellings and alternative housing on residential blocks. The Shire explicitly recognises that affordable housing requires flexibility. Building permits are processed quickly with relaxed standards. Land costs range from $8,000 to $15,000 for residential blocks. Rainfall is minimal at 250 millimeters, requiring large water storage. Bores are viable with reasonable water quality. Solar is excellent year-round. A realistic total setup cost is land $12,000, a quality shed dwelling $35,000, solar and batteries $11,000, water infrastructure $7,000, and a septic system $3,000. The total is approximately $68,000. The town has a tiny store and minimal services. Medical care is visiting practitioners only. Summer heat is extreme, but the council actively supports alternative living, making this the legally clearest option. $12,000 for land plus $56,000 of infrastructure equals council-approved off-grid living. Minimal services, but maximum legal clarity and support. At number 10, the Shire of Ravensthorpe in Western Australia. A southern shire with a flexible approach to alternative housing and a relaxed attitude to enforcement. Population is approximately 500 people across the shire. It is about 550 kilometres from Perth, near the southern coast. Shire planners informally support alternative housing through relaxed enforcement. Written regulations require standard housing, but the council does not enforce strictly against well-built alternative dwellings. Hopetoun offers coastal access 15 kilometres away, and it provides an ocean lifestyle. Land costs range from $20,000 to $40,000, depending on location and size. Rainfall is better here, at 400 millimeters a year. The coastal climate moderates temperature extremes. Bores are viable, and solar is excellent. Total setup costs include $30,000 for land, $45,000 for a quality tiny house or a container conversion, $13,000 for a solar system, $6,000 for water tanks, and $4,000 for a septic system. The total is approximately $98,000. A medical centre operates in town, and basic shopping exists. Coastal proximity provides lifestyle benefits. The climate is Mediterranean rather than extreme heat. $30,000 for land plus $68,000 for infrastructure equals off-grid coastal proximity. Better climate and services are part of the trade-off. The total cost is higher, but the lifestyle is better. Number 9. Tenterfield Shire, New South Wales. This northern New South Wales shire has an established alternative lifestyle community and an informal tolerance for OFF grid living. The shire has a population of approximately 7,000 people across the shire area. It is about 650 kilometres north of Sydney, near the Queensland border in the New England Highlands. The Shire has developed informal tolerance for alternative housing on rural blocks outside town boundaries through years of non-enforcement. Enforcement is complaint-driven and selective, focusing on genuine problems rather than proactive inspection of compliant alternative dwellings. An established off-grid community provides support, shared knowledge, and social connection for newcomers. Rural land typically costs $30,000 to $60,000 for 5 to 20 hectare blocks, which provide privacy and space. Rainfall averages 800 millimeters annually, significantly reducing water infrastructure costs and storage needs. The climate has 4 distinct seasons, with cold winters that require heating capacity and relief from endless heat. Solar generation is good year-round, though winter production reduces somewhat and requires a larger battery bank. The town has a hospital that provides emergency care, multiple shops and services, and functioning schools. It is within commutable distance to Queensland cities for major shopping and for medical specialists. The cooler climate attracts tree changers and lifestyle seekers. Typical realistic setup costs are as follows. Land, $45,000 for a decent block. Owner-built cabin or tiny house using economical materials and some do-it-yourself labor, $40,000. Solar system with adequate battery storage, $10,000. Minimal water infrastructure, $4,000 because rainfall is good. Septic system, $3,000. Complete total, approximately $102,000. Translation, $45,000 for land plus $57,000 for infrastructure in a cooler highland climate with an established, supportive alternative community. Higher costs, but significantly better services and genuine social opportunities for connection. At number 8 is the Shire of Kuro in Western Australia. It is a wheatbelt shire offering free land and off-grid support. Population is approximately 400 people. It is about 300 kilometres north of Perth. Kuro offers free residential land to new residents, and it supports alternative housing, including sheds and containers. The council wants residents more than regulatory compliance. The combination of free land and housing flexibility is powerful. Free land reduces costs dramatically. Rainfall is low at 350 millimeters, requiring water storage. Bores are viable. Solar conditions are excellent. Summer heat is significant. With free land, estimated setup costs are as follows. Dwelling $40,000. Solar and batteries $12,000. Water infrastructure $9,000. Septic $4,000. Total approximately $65,000. Basic services exist. The medical centre operates limited hours. There is a small shop. The school has a tiny enrolment. Expect wheatbelt isolation and heat. In short, free land plus $65,000 of infrastructure yields the cheapest total off-grid setup. The council actively supports alternative housing. Isolation and heat are the main trade-offs. Number 7. Shire of Westonia, Western Australia. This wheatbelt shire offers free land and a flexible housing approach. Population is approximately 250. It is about 300 kilometres east of Perth. Westonia provides free residential land and has relaxed building standards. The council understands affordable housing requires flexibility. Off-grid living is explicitly supported through policy. Free land and low rainfall mean careful water storage planning is essential. Bores are available and solar performance is excellent. The climate is typical of the wheat belt, with hot summers and mild winters. Estimated total setup, dwelling $35,000 using economical materials, solar $10,000, water infrastructure $8,000, and septic $3,000. Total approximately $56,000. Services are minimal, with a medical centre visited by doctors, a tiny shop, and a small school. Isolation is significant, but less than in Goldfields towns. In short, free land plus $56,000 of infrastructure makes this one of the most economical total setups. The wheatbelt location and explicit council support for alternative housing are the main advantages. At number 6, the Shire of Yalgoo, Western Australia. Northern Wheatbelt Shire with free land, offers and housing flexibility. Population approximately 200, about 500 kilometres north of Perth. Yalgoo provides free land, and the council has indicated flexibility regarding alternative housing for residents committing long-term. The remoteness means minimal inspection and enforcement. Free land reduces setup costs. Rainfall is minimal, requiring substantial water storage or a bore. Solar conditions are excellent year-round. Summer temperatures are extreme. Total setup costs. Quality insulated dwelling, $42,000. Solar and batteries, $13,000. Water infrastructure, including tanks and a bore, $9,000. Septic, $3,000. Total approximately $67,000. A tiny store operates limited hours. The medical clinic is very limited. The school runs with minimal students. Occasional gold exploration provides employment opportunities. Yalgoo offers free land and council flexibility for alternative housing, balanced by extreme heat, remote living, and minimal services. Number 5, the Shire of Bundaberg, Queensland. Coastal Shire with rural blocks supporting off-grid living. Population approximately 70,000 in the city, with rural communities that enable off-grid lifestyles. Rural blocks outside the city have informal tolerance for alternative housing and off-grid systems. Written regulations exist, but enforcement on rural properties is minimal unless there are complaints. Proximity to the coastal city provides service access. Rural land typically costs $60,000 to $90,000 for larger blocks with privacy. Rainfall is excellent at 1,000 millimeters annually, reducing water infrastructure costs. The climate is subtropical year-round. Solar resources are very good. Total setup costs follow. Land $75,000, quality cabin $45,000, solar $12,000, minimal water infrastructure $3,000, septic $4,000. Total approximately $139,000. Proximity to the city means hospital, shopping, and schools are all accessible. Coastal lifestyle and a better climate come with higher total costs, but access to amenities is much better. Translation, a slightly different breakdown. $75,000 for land, plus $64,000 for infrastructure near the coastal city. Subtropical climate, good rainfall, higher costs, but access to comprehensive services. At number 4 is the Shire of Central Highlands in Queensland. This is an inland Queensland shire with acceptance of alternative lifestyles. The population is approximately 30,000 people across the large shire. Rural areas west of Emerald support off-grid living. Rural blocks have minimal enforcement of building standards. The council focuses on complaints, not on proactive inspection. Existing off-grid residents provide community knowledge and practical experience. Rural land costs $40,000 to $70,000, depending on size and location. Rainfall varies from 400 to 700 millimeters. Bores are viable and solar resources are excellent. The climate is hot in summer and mild in winter. Typical total setup includes land, $55,000. An owner-built or economical dwelling, $40,000. Solar, $11,000. Water infrastructure, $6,000. And septic, $3,000. The total is approximately $115,000. Town services in Emerald are accessible within a reasonable distance. Medical care is available, and shopping centres exist. This location offers a balance of isolation and access. At number 3, the Shire of Walgett, New South Wales. This northwest New South Wales shire has informal tolerance for alternative housing, making it off-grid friendly. Population is approximately 6,000 people across the shire. It is about 650 kilometres from Sydney. Rural blocks outside town have informal tolerance for alternative housing. Council enforcement is complaint-driven, not proactive. Low property values and minimal development pressure create a permissive environment. Rural land costs range from $20,000 to $40,000 for small rural blocks. Annual rainfall is moderate at 500 millimeters. Bores are viable with reasonable water quality. Solar resource is excellent. The climate features hot summers and mild winters. Estimated total setup costs are $85,000. That breaks down as land $30,000, an economical dwelling $35,000, solar $10,000, water infrastructure and a bore $7,000, and septic $3,000. These figures reflect an affordable, practical setup for off-grid living. The town has a hospital, shopping and schools. Basic services exist, so the area is less isolated than the smallest towns. It is a regional New South Wales location. In short, $30,000 for land plus $55,000 for dwelling and infrastructure in northwest New South Wales. Costs are moderate, basic services are accessible, and the hot climate is manageable. Walgett is worth considering for those seeking a relatively affordable off-grid option. Number 2. The Shire of Moree Plains in New South Wales. This Northwest Plains Shire offers a flexible approach to rural living. Population is approximately 14,000 in the town, and surrounding rural areas support off-grid living. Rural blocks have minimal building enforcement. The council accepts alternative housing on rural land without major intervention. Artesian water access is a unique advantage. Rural land costs range from $30,000 to $50,000 for small lifestyle blocks. Artesian water available through bores provides an effectively unlimited supply. Average rainfall is 550 millimeters. The solar resource is excellent. The climate is hot, and the hot artesian baths provide recreation. Here is a typical setup cost breakdown. Land, $40,000. A quality cabin, $45,000. Solar, $12,000. A bore for artesian water, $5,000. Minimal rainwater collection, $3,000. Septic, $3,000. Total, approximately $108,000. The town has comprehensive services, including a hospital, shopping centres, and schools. It is less isolated than remote options, and it is famous for the hot artesian baths. In short, $40,000 for land plus $68,000 for infrastructure delivers access to artesian water. That water advantage is unique, and the town combines rural off-grid potential with local services. At number 1, combining optimal factors, the Shire of Peru, Queensland. Remote southwest Queensland Shire with maximum freedom. Population is approximately 2,000 people spread across a massive shire. It is about 1,000 kilometers from Brisbane. The Shire has minimal enforcement capacity and an informal, complete tolerance for alternative housing. Remoteness means inspectors rarely visit. Existing residents live in sheds, containers, caravans, and alternative dwellings without intervention. Rural land costs $15,000 to $30,000 for large blocks. Rainfall is low at 300 to 400 millimeters, requiring water storage. Bores are viable. Solar conditions are optimal. The climate features extremely hot summers and mild winters. Typical setup costs are as follows. Land, $22,000. An insulated shed dwelling, $38,000. Solar and batteries, $11,000. Water tanks and bore collection, $8,000. Septic, $3,000. The total is approximately $82,000. Services are minimal. Tiny towns like Cunnamulla provide basic shopping and medical services. Expect extreme isolation, but maximum freedom for alternative living without interference. In short, expect $22,000 for land plus $60,000 for infrastructure in remote Queensland with maximum regulatory freedom. Extreme isolation, minimal services, and complete independence and freedom. So there you have it, 12 Australian locations where off-grid living is genuinely viable, legally or practically. Let us be brutally honest about what off-grid living actually means. This is not Instagram glamping. This is a serious commitment to self-sufficiency, requiring skills, labor, and resilience. The setup costs of $60,000 to $140,000 are real, substantial, and genuinely unavoidable for quality sustainable off-grid living. You absolutely need a proper insulated dwelling designed and built for Australian temperature extremes, ranging from sub-zero winters to 50-degree summers. Adequate solar capacity with substantial battery storage costs $10,000 to $15,000 minimum for reliable household power covering refrigeration, lighting, water pumping, and basic appliances. Water infrastructure, including multiple tanks, quality guttering and collection systems, filtration, and possibly bore drilling costs $5,000 to $10,000 depending on rainfall and bore viability. Septic or composting toilet systems cost $3,000 to $5,000 installed properly. These are not optional luxury expenses that can be skipped or deferred. Location selection matters enormously for both legal viability and practical livability. Western Australian shires like Kew, Menzies, Kuro, and Westonia offer explicit formal council support through published policies and even free land in some cases. That support provides maximum legal clarity and reduces ongoing stress and regulatory risk substantially. The trade-off is extreme heat, with summer temperatures routinely exceeding 45 degrees, very low rainfall requiring expensive water infrastructure, and severe isolation, often hundreds of kilometres from cities and comprehensive services. New South Wales and Queensland options like Tenterfield, Moree, Bundaberg, and Central Highlands offer substantially better climate conditions, significantly higher rainfall that reduces water infrastructure costs, and much better service access, including hospitals and schools. The substantial trade-off is higher land costs, typically $30,000 to $90,000, and less formal council support, which requires more regulatory risk tolerance and accepting a quasi-legal status in some cases. The climate challenges are severe, and they genuinely impact daily quality of life. Western Australian summers of 45 to 50 degrees require excellent insulation, substantial thermal mass, careful orientation, and adequate solar power for at least minimal cooling to remain livable. Winter in New South Wales Highlands, like Tenterfield, requires proper heating capacity through wood combustion or substantial solar-powered heating. Designing and building a dwelling specifically for the climate extremes particular to your location is absolutely critical for long-term livability and comfort, not just survival. Water determines long-term viability and sustainability more than almost any other single factor. High rainfall areas like Bundaberg, receiving 1,000 millimeters annually, need minimal water storage of perhaps 20,000 litres to provide a reasonable buffer between rain events. Low rainfall areas like Menzies and Kew, receiving only 200 to 300 millimeters annually, require massive tank capacity of 50,000 to 100,000 litres as an absolute minimum, plus serious consideration of bore backup that carries drilling and casing costs of $5,000 to $10,000. Artesian areas like Moree Plains have unique advantages with essentially unlimited bore water supply, though drilling and casing costs still apply initially. Water availability and reliability fundamentally determine whether a location is genuinely sustainable, long-term, or constantly stressful. Finally, the social isolation is real, significant, and it genuinely affects mental health and well-being if you are not mentally prepared. Off-grid life offers independence and potential financial freedom, but it comes with trade-offs that touch every part of daily life. Research councils test the lifestyle where you can, budget realistically, and decide whether this path is the right fit for your priorities and resilience. Remote shires like Menzies, Yalgoo, and Paru have total populations under 500 permanent residents spread across massive geographic areas of thousands of square kilometres. Your nearest neighbour might realistically be 10 kilometres away, requiring deliberate travel. A town with basic services might be 20 to 50 kilometers away, requiring vehicle travel for any social interaction or basic shopping. Medical emergencies require long drives of 1 to 2 hours minimum to hospitals with emergency departments. Social connection and regular interaction require deliberate, consistent effort, acceptance of solitude, and genuine comfort with isolation. But the financial transformation and wealth building is genuine and substantial. Someone paying $28,000 a year in Sydney rent to landlords spends $280,000 over 10 years, owning absolutely nothing at the end. They have enriched landlords while gaining zero equity or assets. Someone spending $80,000 on a complete off-grid setup owns independent property forever, with no ongoing housing costs. After 10 years, the Sydney renter has nothing and faces another decade of rent increases. The off-grid owner has property worth at least $80,000, plus accumulated value from improvements, plus 10 years of zero rent savings, potentially $150,000 to $200,000 additional dollars. This is a financial transformation. Independence from ongoing costs is transformational for financial security. No electricity bills, saving $2,000 to $3,000 per year. No water bills, saving $1,000 per year. No sewerage charges, saving $800 per year. No rent payments, saving $20,000 to $30,000 per year in regional areas or more in cities. Your ongoing costs are only food, vehicle fuel, and maintenance, and minimal council rates. Total annual living costs can realistically be under $15,000 per year, including all food and transport. Someone earning $40,000 a year, working remotely in an off-grid setup, spends approximately $15,000 on living costs and saves $25,000 per year consistently. Over 10 years, that accumulates to $250,000 in savings and investments. Someone earning the same $40,000 a year in Sydney pays $28,000 in rent, plus $15,000 in other costs, which equals $43,000 total spending per year, saving literally nothing if they are extremely disciplined and lucky with no emergencies. The savings gap is dramatic. The 10-year comparison is stark and undeniable. The Sydney renter has zero savings and no assets. The off-grid person has property worth $80,000 plus $250,000 in accumulated savings, which equals $330,000 in total wealth. Same income, completely different financial outcomes based purely on housing choices. The lifestyle appeals to very specific personality types and people. If you genuinely need constant social interaction, regular cultural activities and events, urban amenities like restaurants and entertainment, or conventional career advancement opportunities, off-grid living will not work for you long term. You will become miserable, isolated, depressed, and eventually abandon the project at financial loss. But if you genuinely prefer solitude over crowds, nature and natural surroundings over concrete, independence over convenience, simple living over consumption, and financial freedom over social status and material displays, off-grid living delivers life satisfaction and contentment impossible to achieve in conventional urban systems. Simple living can be deeply rewarding. The skills required are substantial but genuinely learnable with commitment and effort. Solar system maintenance and troubleshooting is straightforward with basic electrical understanding. Water management and conservation is logical problem solving. Gardening and food production improve dramatically with practice and experience. Building maintenance and repairs develop naturally over time through necessity. With patience and persistence, these skills become part of a sustainable, independent life. The initial learning curve is real and steep, but commitment and persistence overcome it. Online resources, off-grid communities, and trial and error all contribute to skill development. The council relationship matters. Shires that explicitly support alternative housing reduce stress dramatically. You are legal and approved. Shires with informal tolerance require accepting some regulatory risk, but practical experience shows minimal actual enforcement in remote areas. The community aspect varies. Some off-grid communities provide knowledge sharing and mutual support. Other locations, you will be completely isolated. Research community existence before committing to places where social connection matters to you. Before committing to off-grid living, test the lifestyle thoroughly and honestly. Rent or stay in the target area for an extended period of weeks or months, not just days. Experience summer heat extremes and winter cold directly. Understand actual water availability through dry periods. Verify council attitudes and enforcement practices through direct communication with shire planners. Talk extensively to existing off-grid residents about real daily challenges, not just romanticized aspects. Test the reality before you commit. Have a realistic, comprehensive budget that includes substantial contingencies and unexpected costs. Setup always costs more than initially planned due to unforeseen issues and necessary upgrades. Water systems often need capacity upgrades. Solar systems may need expansion for increased loads. Dwelling improvements become necessary for comfort and efficiency. Budget a minimum of $100,000 for a quality, sustainable setup that will function reliably long-term without constant repairs and replacements. Budget realistically. Understand this is a permanent lifestyle change requiring full commitment, not a temporary experiment. Returning to conventional urban living after establishing off-grid involves substantial costs, practical challenges, and difficult psychological adjustment. Make the decision with complete commitment and realistic expectations. Can we honestly talk about how this reveals fundamental housing crisis solutions? $80,000 buys permanent independence and freedom through off-grid living, while the same amount is a one-third deposit on city property that requires a $600,000 mortgage. The conventional path seems insane compared to off-grid ownership. These opportunities exist. Off-grid living is legal or tolerated in specific locations. Setup costs are manageable compared to conventional property. Independence from ongoing costs is transformative. Life satisfaction is possible outside conventional systems. Opportunities are real. For people trapped in rental cycles or locked out of property markets, off-grid living is not giving up civilization. It is choosing independence, ownership, and financial freedom over status and consumption. Independence matters. Subscribe for Australian alternative living content. Comment which location surprised you most, and tell us if you would commit to off-grid living for financial independence. Like the video so the algorithm registers that alternative living matters. See you next time.